Hello, and welcome to our next episode of Small Screen Cinema with Tabitha and Dad, the two stars of this show. It's pretty cool
Hi,
being a star, isn't it? I like
it
being a
sure is.
star. Um, we are we are going to we are going to review the movie Children of the Lotus Eaters. That's one of the titles. What were the other two titles? The
The
Psychiatrist.
psychiatrist and God bless the children.
God bless the children. I like that one. Tabitha, tell us the background of this movie.
All right, so um, this movie was a pilot film for a failed TV show called The Psychiatrist. Never heard of it. I'm not surprised it ran all of 7 episodes, including this movie. It was one of those revolving time slot shows, like how they had the bold ones, they had the lawyers and the doctors, and what were the other two? The senator and the protectors, and they would kind of switch off week to week.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that series rotated. This rarely worked out, except for the bold ones. The doctors managed to run 4 seasons. The lawyers ran for 3. The protectors and the senators got cut off immediately. They were like, we don't care about that. The other shows in the psychiatrist rotation, this wasn't a umbrella thing. These shows had nothing to do with each other. The other ones were Night Gallery, McLeod, and San Francisco International Airport. Now, obviously, Night Gallery got picked up, McLeod got picked up. San Francisco International did not get picked up, but it did become a pretty good MST3K episode.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
It's funny. I recommend it.
Oh,
Although it
what
is sad because it had another one of my boyfriends in it, Pernell Roberts.
is it? Is it Joel or Mike?
Oh God, I think it's Mike. I think it's Mike.
Okay, then I may have seen it because I think I've seen all of Mike's. I haven't seen all of Joel's, but yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah, I like that one. Children of the Lotus Eaters was written by Gerald Friedman. He was a television writer, director, and producer. He was a producer on Prescription Murder, which was the very first Columbo story. He wrote for the Bold Ones, the Protectors, and the Senator. You know, the two that got canceled. Although the Senator was apparently a big critical darling, it won like several Emmys that year.
Hmm.
He wrote for Kojak and Night Gallery. He wrote a few other TV movies as well. None that I'm familiar with, but maybe we'll get to them. As a director, he did 2 episodes of The X-Files in its first season.
Wow.
Mhm. And he directed a lot of TV movies, some that he wrote as well. And he did direct an episode of The Psychiatrist, but not this one. And Friedman is still with us today. The teleplay was based on a story by Richard Levinson and William Link, aka the Columbo guys. And we've talked about them before in the private Slovak episode, so I won't get into them again. The telefilm was directed by Daryl Duke. He directed for all the bold ones except the lawyers, and he worked on Banachek, Circle of Fear, which is a 1 season horror anthology show that I really like. He did a couple Columbo TV movies and the Thornbirds miniseries. He also directed a good amount of TV movies. And he directed the feature film The Silent Partner with Elliot Gould and Christopher Plummer, which I thought was interesting.
Ah.
Duke passed away in 2006 at 77. The original title was God Bless the Children, but I guess they changed it to Children of the Lotus Eaters when it ran in syndication because the title that comes up on screen is Children of the Lotus Eaters. So that's what I will be calling it. It stars Roy Tynes, I think is how you say it, as the psychiatrist Dr. Whitman. Tynes is from Chicago, and he's had an interesting career. He started out doing guest work on television, got a couple of shows on his own that didn't really end up working. He played Ben Quick in the television version of The Long Hot Summer, which was based on a Paul Newman movie, which was based on a Faulkner novel. That only lasted a season. Then he was in The Invaders, and that lasted 2 seasons and was a Quinn Martin production. He's in another TV movie I like called Black Noon. He was in 2 episodes of the original Battlestar Galactica and Airport 75, which is a running theme for us lately.
Yeah.
And then he continued to bounce around on TV shows like Falcon Crest, The Love Boat, Highway to Heaven, and he kept working all the way up through The Sopranos, The X-Files, and Oz.
Yes, I have
And he,
seen him in The Sopranos.
he is still with us today at 88.
What was the episode? Um, House Arrest. He's in that.
I believe you.
Okay.
I've
I
not watched The Sopranos.
love The Sopranos. So, but one thing that's interesting, um, I, I liked him in his later work,
Hmm.
like The Sopranos. This is 30 years earlier, 20 years early, 25. I don't know. It's earlier. He seemed to evolve as an actor. Um, and I'm not criticizing his performance in this because he was supposed to be stoic and, he played the character the way it needed to be played. But um, he's a more interesting actor in some of his other stuff. And
Hmm.
I'm not trying to criticize him. He played the part the way it was written. But
But
if
it
you
wasn't
watch,
written very interestingly.
yes, 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 yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay. No
Did
backstory, no nothing. So
Did you ever watch The Invaders?
no.
Oh, I haven't either. I was just wondering. Then we have my boyfriend, Pete Duel. That's him right there.
I've got him
As
tattooed on my heart. So,
as Casey Poe. It's one of Hollywood's tragedies. I have a whole other podcast where I cover every Alias Smith and Jones episode, and I have gone into great detail about his life over there. But the short version is Pete Duel was an actor from New York. Saw some early success when he. What just happened? Stop it. Stop it, Google Docs. Okay.
oh,
Saw saw some early success when he moved to LA. He co-starred with Sally Field on the show Gidget, and then got his own one-season sitcom called Love on a Rooftop. When that was canceled, he had some smaller parts in some smaller movies and got regular guest work on television. Then he got Alias Smith and Jones, or more accurately, the show got him. He was sort of pressured into it. He did not enjoy it. He struggled with depression and alcohol abuse since his teen years, and suicidal ideation. And on December 30th, 1971, in the middle of shooting Alias Smith and Jones season 2, he died by suicide at 31. I think he was talented, charismatic, and very handsome, and I'm just really sorry that it happened. Jewel was said to have considered his role in this movie his favorite that he ever played, and I can see why. It's fairly meaty.
now this had to have been pretty much right before he killed himself.
It aired in 70, so about a year
Okay.
before.
Unalived. I'm sorry. We're not supposed to say that anymore. So unalived.
Oh, like we're getting money off this podcast.
I'm trying to be correct.
Don't say unalive. It's so stupid.
Okay.
Um, next up is Joy Bang as Kendall, and it looks like she retired from acting only a few years after this in 1974.
But
But
yeah, she's an old bag.
she's in a really great little horror film called Messiah of Evil. I highly recommend checking that out. I think it's on Shudder. She guest starred on Police Story, Hawaii Five-O, and Adam 12. And she did co-star in a few other movies like Play It Again, Sam, Red Sky at Morning, and Pretty Maids All in a Row. As far as I can tell, she is still alive, but she's been out of the business for so long that I don't know if IMDb is up to date. And finally, we have Luther Adler as Dr. Altman, and he would have been the other regular on the psychiatrist show proper. He worked in films in the 40s and the 50s. Yeah, he was in a great little noir called DOA. and the James Cagney gangster movie called Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye. He continued to work up through the 70s in TV and films, and his last credit is the Paul Newman movie Absence of Malice, if you've ever seen that. It's a pretty
Oh,
good,
yeah.
yeah, pretty good journalism movie. Adler passed away in 1984 at age 81. Children of the Lotus Eaters aired December 14th,
Yeah.
1970. Oh, sorry. Yes?
I want to give a shout out to two other people in this movie. John Rubenstein, who was we previously saw in Howling in the Woods. Like I
Oh,
said, if you needed a curly-haired teenage guy in the 70s, he
that
was your
was
man.
him.
Yeah, he was in a ton of movies playing basically the same character. And we also have the Staple Singers in this. And you may not know who the Staple Singers are. They were a gospel group that had been around since like 1950, and they had like a 60-year career. And they actually had a song, a crossover pop hit in the 70s, Let Me Take You There, that I think may have reached number one. But they were like the most well-known gospel singing group of their era. So I thought it was cool that they had a little cameo in there.
Are they the ones singing the song at the beginning?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't like that song. Sorry, Staple Singers.
Well, you got to listen to "Let Me Take You There." That's a really good
Let
song.
me take you there. I
Yeah.
will look it up. Um, yeah, this aired December 14th, 1970, so that would have been a year and 2 weeks before Pete passed away. It aired on NBC. On CBS, it ran against Mayberry RFD, The Doris Day Show, and The Carol Burnett Show. And on ABC, it ran against Monday Night Football. The Lions played the Rams, and the Lions won. I
Yeah.
thought you might care about that.
Rams. So,
I know, traders. And with that, let's talk about the movie. So we start out with a montage of a bunch of hitchhiking hippies with this song, and it's I don't like it. Like I said, I don't like the song. And is that some footage of Woodstock I saw, or just another generic concert?
I don't know. It could have been Woodstock. It could have been Altamont. There was a lot of festivals in that time period,
Mm.
so could have been
Um,
anything.
I want to apologize about the quality of this movie because it is quite bad. But be glad I'm not making you watch How to Steal an Airplane because the quality, that's another Pete Duel TV movie. Quality's just as bad, but it's an action movie, so there's a ton of screen time with no dialogue where your guess is as good as mine as to what's going on. Don't worry, the other Pete stuff on my list has much better quality. Trust and believe we will get to it. After the credits, we follow a couple up from the beach into some sort of mill, which doubles as a drug den. I don't know why it's on the beach.
And a hippie amusement park, apparently.
That too. Then we smash cut to a man named Casey Poe teaching a young boy how to use a microscope. And he looks out the window to see the boy's mother slash his landlady get a letter about him, and he knows that his jig is up. She storms into the room, gives the letter to her son as a kind of gotcha moment, and like he's just a kid. Maybe get him out of the room for all this,
Yeah, that should have been handled in private. I was like,
right?
what a bitch, man. So,
Anyway, the letter says that Casey is an ex-convict and he was in prison on drug charges. So she's trying to throw him out. She tries to throw his microscope off the balcony. And as he's trying to stop her, at one point he does have his hands around her neck, which is not cool.
yeah,
She manages to throw the microscope over the balcony. He lets her go and looks down. And I don't blame her. I don't blame her for not wanting her kid around this guy. But again, this is probably gonna stick with that kid for a while, this scene he just witnessed.
yes.
We cut back to the drug den, and more stone teens join the couple, and of course the guys are fully dressed while the girl is in a teeny tiny bikini. One of the guys says,
Well, it would have been goofy if the men were in teeny tiny bikinis. And
One of
anyway, the quality of this, at first I thought, is she naked?
It's a flesh-colored bikini, yeah.
Yeah, and with the quality of it, it's like, did they show that on TV? My gosh, we're watching Cinemax movies. So
One of the guys says he's just been down by the dunes with Apple, and he's a stone freak. He was just laying on the sand for 2 hours without talking, not one word. So you're like, okay, that's probably not a good thing. And then we see the cops arrive on the dunes to drag Apple away, and he is still alive. I figured he'd be dead with what he was saying, but he's alive, just completely catatonic. He's sent to the hospital. His mother is speaking to a doctor, and he tells her he's capable of speech, but he took amphetamines earlier and it did something to his mind, but who knows what. That night, Casey is walking around the drug part of town, I guess, and a couple of cops recognize him. He gets into a car and tries to procure illegal substances of some sort. I thought it was heroin, but apparently you can inject amphetamines too, so I don't know.
I didn't know that. It's been so long since I've been a drug addict, though.
Um, so he buys drugs and catches on that the cops are watching him. So he takes off in an effort to lose them, and he escapes into a church. He watches the singing for a bit before heading to the bathroom, and as he's getting ready to shoot up, which by the way, his arm, very toned, very sexy.
Yeah, I
as
was going to inject that.
as he's about to shoot up, a little kid walks in on him, kind of freaks out and runs to get his mom. So frustrated, Casey throws the needle down and he goes to call the titular psychiatrist. The kid brings his mother into the room and Casey asks for her help dialing the phone, and she's like, "Are you a junkie?" But she does help him dial the phone. Then we cut to a support group of an unspecified nature. It seems to be just like a general group therapy session. And the psychiatrist is just listening to everyone argue with each other and tells them to keep going while he takes this call from Casey. And I don't know if that's a great idea, but I'm not the psychiatrist. He gets on the phone and Casey tells him that he's about to blow. He tells them where he is, and Dr. James Whitman says he'll come to him. And when he gets there, the cops are searching Casey. They don't find drugs or new track marks. I assume there are old ones there, but you can't really see. Dr. Whitman says he will take care of him, and Casey says he's been clean for 2 years. Whitman is annoyed that Casey pulled him out of a session and didn't even take the drugs. Which, dude, the goal is to not do the drugs, right? And then he says Casey should have been at the session. He wonders if he's been using the wrong approach with him. He says he's been trying to get through to him for 2 months. And about what, I'm not sure, since he has been clean this whole time. And I'm guessing before that he was in prison and was clean not by choice. Casey, kind of feeling sorry for himself, says nobody in the group wants to talk to him. And Whitman calls bullshit on that. He says Casey is the one who refuses to engage with anyone at the group. He's the most uncooperative patient he's ever had. They theorize that maybe their personalities are just incompatible and that that's no reflection on either of them. When he suggests that Casey looks for another doctor, Casey gets kind of a hurt and panicked look on his face. He clearly doesn't really want to do that. And I think the sessions are a condition of his parole, and Whitman assures him that he will take care of that and make sure that he won't go back to jail for it. But the next psychiatrist might be one in a state hospital, in case he really doesn't want to do that. And he tells him he doesn't want him to leave either, but he doesn't have any regard for his own life. He believes that he has contributions to be made, but he has to open up to get there. And he asks what set him off this particular night. He tells him about getting evicted and the letter. The letter came from a school where he used to teach at, and Whitman says he didn't know Casey had been a teacher, and I feel like he probably should have known that if he's his doctor. Like,
Yeah, he didn't seem to know a lot about him except that he was a junkie. Um, so that was kind of weird. And I always thought I thought it was weird when I was watching it that he went into a church to shoot up. Don't
maybe
you
it
know
was
like
the first open door he found. I don't know.
usually you go to like a skating rink or something. I don't know. Because whenever I was a kid and we would go to the skating rink every Tuesday, my mom would say, "Now don't go into the bathroom because they do dope in those bathrooms." I went into the bathrooms. I never saw anybody doing dope, but there was always gambling going on. There were so,
I don't remember anyone shooting up at the skating rink when I would go to the bathroom, but maybe I wasn't going on the right nights. I don't know.
but you didn't go to the skating rink in the early 70s.
That's true. I went in the mid 90s.
Yeah, when people were shooting up in the bathroom to the Osmonds down by the lazy river, you know. Anyway, proceed.
Okay. Casey said he was a damn good teacher and he was clean for a long time. So I guess he had started and then stopped and then relapsed, and that's when the school caught him, is what I understand. And Whitman's the first person he's told that to. Again, this is not a good doctor. He doesn't know anything about him.
Yeah. And
The
parenthetically,
school
let me
fired him, but didn't report him to avoid a scandal. Oh, you froze. Oh, there you are. Whitman suggests that maybe Casey subconsciously wanted the landlady to find out about him. So the phone rings. They're back at Whitman's apartment by this point. His phone rings, and it's a young woman named Persephone, who she is a patient at the Mandela Center for Behavior Therapy. He might not be her doctor, but you probably shouldn't be dating her in any case. If they are dating, I don't know what's going on. This has nothing to do with the rest of this movie. Maybe it comes back in the other 6 episodes, but I looked into it. If it does, Persephone is played by somebody else because Catherine Justice, who plays her in this episode, is only credited for this movie. Maybe they
okay.
decided, yeah, this is a stupid plot that's not going anywhere. We're not getting back to it. And then it doesn't even lead to anything in this movie. It's
No, it's
a total time waster.
yeah.
Whitman goes to see a colleague, Dr. Altman, and he wants to talk about Persephone's therapy. And Altman says, "You're not her doctor," and he really blows him off quite aggressively. And then we get a montage of Whitman going through private sessions with different patients. And at the end of the day, he calls the hospital about her again and is somewhat distressed to find that she's been given sleeping pills. And this is really inappropriate. Dr. Whitman, Dr. Altman pays him a visit, and Whitman says he's worried about Persephone, and Altman's like, "I'm worried about her too, but at the end of the day, um, nope, I misread that. He says, "Yeah, I'm worried about her too, but he is preoccupied with this town whose entire population of teenagers are drug addicts, apparently." And
It was a little uh over the top with the drug usage. But you
yeah,
know, this, when I was a kid, it, it was everywhere. Yeah, I mean, we were people we knew in the neighborhood overdosed on heroin and stuff like that.
oh
And
God.
the schools were always talking about drugs and how bad they were. My mom was always talking about don't ever do dope or I'll kill you. Stuff like that. I don't think that the threat was as bad as this movie makes it out to be or the scope of it. But it did seem like because of the messages that were coming through that every kid was on drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, I never got peer pressured once to do drugs, which probably says more about me than about the druggy kids. Like, she's
I,
not cool
I,
enough to do drugs. Don't even talk to her.
I was only asked once to do drugs, and I was about 10 years old. And me and my friend John, we were at the South Rock Santa homecoming, and they had a tent that had a little movie, The History of Rock and Roll. So we go in there, we sit down, about four teenagers sit behind us. And they say, "You guys want to smoke a joint?" We just said, "No, thank you." And that's before Nancy Reagan told us to say no, thank you. Well, she just said no. I said no, thank you, because I'm polite. So we just said no, thank you. And they smoked dope and we didn't.
Yeah, we had to go through the whole dare thing when I was in grade school, which ate up a lot of time where we probably could have been learning stuff, but whatever. Anyway, Dr. Altman can't get through to the parents. Not one parent in this town realizes that their kid's on dope, I guess. He cannot convince them there is a problem. He's gonna go back the next day and try again, and he asks Dr. Whitman to go with him, says he could use the support. Whitman declines, which is fair. When he was looking for a little support earlier, Altman could not have cared less. Also, I notice he has an 8 by 10 framed photo of Persephone in his living room. My
Did
guy,
notice that.
you you should not have contact with this woman. Anyway, as soon as Altman leaves, Whitman changes his mind and decides to go with him to the junky beach town. So they go to the town hall and they make their case to all the parents. And during this meeting, we keep cutting back to the drug den slash mill, whatever that place is, to see all the kids smoking grass, man. Can you believe the debauchery? And the parents are like, well, that sounds crazy to me. Kids doing drugs, who ever heard of such a thing?
The parents were they were so out of it. So
Right?
so
Um,
naive.
and again, they're talking about the kids using speed. Was this like a new thing? Because this movie's all about speed in particular.
I don't know. It seemed to me that like when I was little, everybody was worried about heroin. And
Hmm.
then as I got older into the 80s, it was cocaine, 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 and then it was crack cocaine, and then it was back to heroin, and then it was meth and ecstasy and stuff like that. It seems like drugs kind of ebb and flow. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a line in one of the 21 Jump Street movies where they talk about cocaine, and she's like a Gen Z. No, wouldn't be Gen Z at that time, like a millennial. She's like, oh my God, cocaine is like such an old person drug. Like the Golden Girls did cocaine. Um, anyway, when we see the kids, though, they're smoking pot. They're not shooting up speed, but whatever. One mother says, just because one kid went to the hospital doesn't mean my kid will. And listen, parenting is hard and we don't really want to do it. Is what I'm getting here. Um, now the kids are breaking out the speed. Now they're about to really party. Basically, the town is not interested in any of this. They don't think there's a problem, and I guess none of them actually talk to their kids.
Yeah, and if there is a problem, why aren't the police doing anything about it? You know,
Yeah, they're basically like, how did drug get in this town? Altman laments about the outcome and apologizes to Whitman for wasting his time. And uh, Whitman says, oh, the parents are concerned, but the taxes. They don't want to spend any money to help their kids get off drugs. Okay. They go to a diner, which is filled with high teenagers being loud, causing a scene, and scandalizing a few nuns who are sitting at another booth. And Altman says somebody's got to do something for these kids. Won't somebody please think of the children? And Whitman doesn't seem all that bothered by the situation. Anyway, that night, Casey's at a bar while Whitman's at his group session, and a woman hits on Casey and I think asks him about drugs. I couldn't quite hear her line.
yeah,
Uh, anyway, when she says that, he bolts. And at the session, the group are once again berating each other for their problems, but Casey actually does show up. And this is probably my favorite scene in the movie. Whitman immediately changes the subject to drugs when Casey walks in, and he's sitting there like a pouting child with like his arms crossed protectively, his head's down, he's not talking. And one woman, I love this woman. She is so mad. She just blurts out that she's a prostitute. That's right, baby. Her delivery, it's amazing. And one of the men asked what her price is.
Like, she said, for you, $10,000 or something.
Yes. Um, he tells her she must hate men, and she says she hates weak men. And another woman chimes in that a good woman can make any man strong. No, no, honey, no. It is not our job to make men strong. It is not our job to make men anything. We do not exist for men.
See, that's you get that lesson when you watch The Simpsons because Marge tries to make Homer a good man, but she just can't.
Yeah, there's that line in the episode where Lisa gets a crush on Nelson, and Marge is like, "Honey, most women will tell you you're foolish to think you can change a man, but those women aren't trying hard enough." Which I thought was a good line. Um, so the sex worker said that she loved a man who became a junkie and she was paying for his habit via sex work. And I'm like, okay, how did that happen? Did he ask you to go do that? Did you decide to do that on your own? Anyway, one guy out of nowhere starts defending the USA, and I'm like, MAGA's out of the group, please. And another woman confesses to smoking pot, and the guy's like, that's disgusting.
Yeah,
And then
the,
a few others,
a very square, like suburban woman admits to smoking pot.
yeah, yeah. A few others admit to smoking pot on occasion too, and he's like, that's against the law. I'm not the bad guy here. You all are breaking the law. Only one woman agrees that it's not right, but also she's never tried it. And the guy's like, well, you don't have to shoot yourself in the head to know that that's not good for you. And I'm like, ugh, unfortunate line. And then they ask Casey what he thinks. And he says it's for suckers. And then they all gang up on him. And he says, quote, I'm supposed to care about a bunch of spoiled neurotics who get their kicks from telling strangers how messed up they are. And Whitman tells Casey that he's a member of this group and he will start contributing. They ask why he's so down on drugs if he's never tried them. And then he starts tearing into them. He and the sex worker really start butting heads and they almost come to blows. Like he's
Yeah,
about ready to hit this woman.
he has no
And
problem hitting a woman. That's what I
no,
gathered
none.
from
And
this.
the group has to break them up. So it's going real well.
This is the
And
second of three physical fights he's been in with women, by the way.
with women, yeah.
Well, I don't know if the last one's quite a woman yet, but we'll talk about that.
At the end of the group, Casey tells Whitman, quote, it ain't gonna happen, palsy. At this point in the movie, he starts calling everybody palsy, and it's stupid and I hate it. Anyway, he tells Whitman that he's not gonna break him down. He did his time in prison, he'll do it here too. Back at Drug City, the girl we've been seeing, the one in the bikini earlier, her name is Kendall, and she goes to visit Apple in the hospital, and he's still catatonic. She takes his hand, she tries to talk to him, and she brought her flute, which she plays for him. And my mom played the flute when she was a kid, and I have no idea where it is now, but she gave it to me when I was a kid, and I never learned what to do with it, but I would just make obnoxious sounds in it. It just made me think of that. Meanwhile, one of the other teens, while high off his ass, dives off the roof of a building and dies. And at this point, the town agrees to do anything Dr. Altman says. Whitman goes to talk to Altman, and Altman's like, I'm not going back there. Screw them. Screw the children. Whitman volunteers to go and thinks it's a great idea to take Casey with him. If Casey can get through to one kid, or one can get through to him, he might make it. I don't know if that follows, but I'm not the psychiatrist. So Whitman and Casey hit the road. They check into a hotel, and Casey's not really sure about all this. He's antsy, wants to go for a walk, and Whitman doesn't love the idea of Casey wandering around Drug City on his own. And Casey says, if you don't trust me not to get a fix, we might as well go home. And Whitman concedes that point and tosses him some money and tells him not to wake him when he gets back. Casey goes to a diner, spots Kendall and another kid, and follows them back to their drug den on the beach. And he just goes right on in, and everybody freezes. And they ask if he's a cop. He doesn't answer. He just says, "Let's have it." He takes Kendall's purse, dumps it out. There's nothing in there. He walks around slowly in front of all the kids and finally yoinks a needle out of one guy's pocket. He asks
John
how.
Rubenstein's pocket.
Oh, okay. Um, his character's name is Teddy, by the way. He asks how many of them have been using this same needle. And he goes, "You can get hepatitis that way." And I'm like, "Oh, this is old." Because nowadays you'd be like, "You're gonna get HIV from this. Don't share needles." He just takes the needle and leaves. And one of the kids is like, "Man, who was that dude? Bet he was the fuzz." And Teddy says if he was the fuzz, we'd all be going to jail right now. Casey goes back to the hotel, and Whitman asks if he came across anything interesting. Casey declines to tell him about what happened, and he still has the syringe. The next morning, Whitman and Casey are joined for breakfast by the chief of police, and Whitney introduces Casey as his technical assistant. When they get to town hall or whatever it is, they are introduced to Teddy formally. He's like the leader of all these kids, which by the way, there's only like 8 of them. I don't know why they're acting like the entire town is on drugs. Um, he asks Casey if he's a psychiatrist like Dr. Whitman, and he says no, and apparently Teddy's going to Yale. Okay. Casey says they should have a talk sometime, and he knows where to find him if he needs them, but neither of them say anything about what happened the night before. They all go to not Apple, whatever the kid who dove off the roof's name is. I don't know if they gave him a name. They go to his funeral, and Teddy gives a eulogy and goes on about his virtues and how he was his best friend and they were going to hitchhike across the country. And when he died, he was into something so beautiful that he had to reach out and take it no matter what it cost. And he found it. Dude, his mother rightly screams at him to stop and that you killed him. You got him onto drugs. All the junkie kids killed him. And Kendall tries to say, "No, we didn't do it." And she says she blames her more than anybody. So Casey approaches Kendall, wanting to talk to her, but Whitman pulls him away. And Casey says, basically, if I'm going to be effective here, you have to let me do what I'm going to do. And so he does. He lets him go. So he goes for a walk with Kendall to pick her brain. She asks what he's doing there. He doesn't answer, and he says, "Can we go someplace else? I don't like cemeteries since my wife died a little over a year ago." He says she died giving birth to their child. That child now lives with his maternal grandparents, and I'm like, that's probably for the best, yeah.
Yeah.
So Kendall takes Casey to this little secluded spot on the beach, like under a bluff. And then he tells her he knew Malcolm X, which at this point I'm like, are you just telling her lies?
Yeah, and that has nothing to do with the rest of the story either. It's like
Oh,
it looked like an older guy trying to score with a young woman. I
yeah.
knew Malcolm X, by the way.
Yeah, I simply don't believe him when he says this. And she says he must have been all over the world and had an incredible life. And she asked if he's been to New York, and she's always wanted to go to New York. She wants to go to Juilliard to study the flute. Again, she asks what he does, and he says he hasn't done much of anything for over a year. And at the moment, he works at a car wash. And he does finally tell her the truth about why he's there. And she's cool with it either because she's high right now or she's just totally taken in by those dimples. Um, she says the kids will listen to you. She's like very encouraging to him. And I'm like, girl, you are one of the addicts. You know this, right? He says everything he's tried over the last year, he has fouled up. And she's like, oh, I just think you're terrific. And he says likewise and asks if she will set up a meeting with her friends. And she says she doesn't know if Teddy will listen to her because he's been kind of turned off to everybody lately. He lifts up his sleeves and shows her the old track marks on his arm and says that he was an addict for 8 years. And she says she'll try to set something up. Back at the hotel, Whitman says he's got to go back to LA by himself and he tells Casey not to get into any trouble. Just goof off for a couple days until he gets back, which is a bad idea, in my opinion, to leave him up there alone, but I'm not a psychiatrist. Kendall does set up a meeting between the kids and Casey, and he goes back to the drug den, and he does his best, but his best isn't very good. And Teddy's able to match him with his hippie bullshit. Uh, Not that Teddy is right necessarily, but he's convinced he is, and you really can't talk to someone who's that convinced they're right, you know?
Yes, I
And
know.
we all know that at this point in American history. And I don't really necessarily care if you want to do drugs. It is your life. I just don't want other people who don't want to do drugs to be endangered by it, you know? Um, Casey tells them about his past as a junkie, and you can tell that Kendall is taking this all in, but Teddy is not. He says he admires him for kicking his habit, and he must have something driving him if he's able to do that. Teddy basically said the world sucks, so we're gonna keep doing drugs about it. When you fix the world, we'll stop. And I'm like, you could stop and try to fix the world, you know?
Yeah, it's easier to take drugs than to fix the world.
Fair enough.
I don't know about that. I let me. I'm diabetic. I have to give myself an injection every day. I dread it every day, even though I've been doing it for over a decade. I hate needles. I hate injections. I have to give blood or give blood samples on a regular basis because of my condition and everything else. I don't know how people start injecting amphetamines or heroin or whatever when they don't have to. I it just man, take some mushrooms or something else. Don't stick needles in you. But anyway, go ahead.
Needles don't bother me. Oh,
Oh gosh, and
I
every
I
time I
rem
have
I remember when you showed me Pulp Fiction and the scene where John Travolta shoots up, you're like, "Oh God, I gotta look away."
yeah,
You can't even watch it.
I can't watch it. And even though they never really show anybody shooting up, every time they pull out a needle, I couldn't watch it.
Mm.
It's like I don't know. It's a weird phobia I have for someone who injects themselves every day, but go ahead.
Lots of people have phobias of needles. It's not weird.
But you
Anyway,
don't. So you have the ability to become a junkie.
yeah, but I don't have the plans to do
No, but
that.
I but you have the ability, and I'm proud of you for that. So,
You. Meanwhile, in LA, Whitman is there because Persephone took an overdose of sleeping pills. And at first I thought she died, which would explain why she's not in the rest of the series, but nope, nope, she's still alive. And her doctor says you can either hold her in your arms or give her the strength she really needs. We won't be seeing any of this, and this is the last we hear about Persephone, so thank you for this waste of time.
or the doctor said, or you could break up with her because she's a piece of crap.
We could have shaved 20 minutes off this movie by cutting this whole
Yeah.
subplot that goes nowhere. Back in Drugtown, Casey broods at the ocean while Kendall plays the flute behind him, and I don't know, it's just kind of a funny scene. Because when you think of like romantic instruments, the flute doesn't immediately come to mind.
The banjo does.
Yes, exactly. He lies down in the sand, and Kendall says she's sorry it didn't work out, that nobody can reach Teddy or the others, and Casey's really down on himself, and they start making out, which stop. She's a teenager, and he does break it off pretty quickly, but still, ugh.
She's she's not 18. She's in high school still. So
Yes. At most she's 17, but
yeah.
it's not okay.
Yeah, and
Um,
she looks
no,
15, 16 years
yeah,
old, it's like, what are you doing, dude?
yeah,
But
and
anyway,
her emotional maturity is very
yeah,
low as well.
yeah, she
She's
she behaves like a high school kid.
Yeah, she's very offended when he pushes her away, and she says she's not a kid, she's a woman. She's been a woman for a long time. And he says, "What does that mean? You're a tramp?" And he freaks out, takes it to 10, and says, "You're just trying to use me like all the others." And she gets freaked out and runs away, and he chases her to, I don't know what end, attack her, assault her, whatever it is, it's not good. Luckily, a cop pulls up and arrests him.
This is his third attempt to abuse a woman, by the way.
Yes, yes. Um, Whitman shows up and demand that he be released. He argues with the chief back and forth, and he says, "You shouldn't have brought a drug addict into our town." And what was that? Oh yeah, he said, "Well, you should have backed up me and Dr. Altman the first time we were here." In any case, the whole thing ends with Casey being released into Dr. Whitman's custody. Meanwhile, Kendall is at the drug den by herself, stoned out of her mind. Casey wants to go back to LA. He says he's done with all this, but before they leave the station, Kendall's mother calls saying that she's stuck out of the house and she thinks she's on LSD. Casey storms out to the parking lot and Whitman apologizes to him, and I'm not really sure why he's sorry. I do think he shouldn't have brought him there or left him alone there, but he's still not the one who freaked out and tried to assault a high school girl. In the car, Casey says he's done listening to Whitman, and Whitman urges him to keep trying and not throw his life away. Again, I'm like, oh, that's unfortunate. Casey says his life has been over long before Whitman came into it. He says if he can't even get to a kid like Teddy, he can't get to himself either. And Whitman says it was a good start. You started something, and now I can get to them. Who knows if he ever does? Suddenly Casey says, "Hang a right." And they arrive at the den to see Kendall up on the roof. And they both try to go up, but Casey's like, "No, I'm going up there alone. I will hit you if you follow me." So he climbs up after her, and she starts to scream, probably because the last time she saw him, he was chasing her.
Yeah.
He finally catches up to her, grabs her, and gets her down, and he holds her. He's calming her down. She's crying, and she asks if she was wrong, and he says, "No, she wasn't wrong. He was the one who was wrong." And yeah, I would say so. And then we fade back to the group, and Casey finally starts telling his story. He says he was an addict for 8 years. His wife was a sex worker to feed his habit. Why is this such a thing in this movie?
Well,
And
I've considered becoming a junkie, but I didn't want to put Kathy through sex work. So
that's nice of you.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. Um, he says it made him hate her and all women, and in the end, he was left with nothing.
And
And on
that's why
that
he
note,
keeps
the
wanting to,
end.
and that's why he keeps beating up women. Ta-da! So
Um, what happened to Persephone? Who knows? Who cares? Hold on. Before we do any final thoughts, I would like to read a couple of excerpts from about this telephone, telefilm from Paul Green's biography of Pete Duel. Uh, Gerald Friedman, this is a quote from the book. Gerald Friedman drafted an intelligent story tackling an issue often avoided by TV networks and struck up a friendship with Duel during filming. Gerald Friedman quote, "We became friends when we did the psychiatrist pilot. I wrote and basically, although my name isn't on it, I produced it. I liked Peter. We were good friends for a brief time and we socialized a little bit. We got very close. I thought he was a terrific actor. It was just one of those times when we thought we were going to do really good stuff in television, and we did actually. Casey Poe and James Whitman were named after two great American writers, Edgar Allan Poe and Walt Whitman. That was an inside joke. Friedman goes on. It actually came from a Life magazine article about kids on drugs. Richard Levinson and William Link wrote the original screenplay. It didn't work for a lot of reasons. They weren't really tuned into kids. NBC basically wasn't going to make it until I rewrote the script. There was no real story. Nobody was based on a real person. It was just a milieu of the times. Pete Duel said of his character, he was a loner. There was much about life he didn't understand. He had a lot of hostility. He felt himself misunderstood, the victim of circumstances. I could identify with that. The fear of failure, the fear of success, the fear of other human beings we all have to a greater or lesser degree. He was my age and spoke the way I'd speak. End quote. And then there's a couple of snippets from reviews at the time, which were mixed overall. The Hollywood Reporter said Duel gives a finely delineated performance of an ex addict. He is especially good in a head on discussion with John Rubinstein about drugs and youth. End quote. And the Los Angeles Herald Examiner said, quote, the film has the claim to reality, but not the feel of it. Of Duel, he said, of Duel, the article said, quote, he's an expressive young actor, but the material he had to work with forces him and other members of the cast to express themselves in barnacled convention and cliched situations. End quote. And that's all I got.
Okay. Did do you think that I saw this when I was 4 years old? Or do you think that I saw a replay of this, or was this the first time I saw this?
First time you saw this.
First time I saw it, I think that was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Um, do you give this a classic or a trash it?
Overall, I would give it a trash it, but I do think it's an interesting watch. If nothing else, but to get like a peek at the times and where what Hollywood at least thought was a social, message movie.
Yeah, I have to give it a trash it. I agree that Pete Duel is the best thing in this movie. Pete and John Rubenstein are the best things in this movie. The thinnest character is just very wooden. There is nothing there to grab hold of. And Kendall is not convincing for some reason. I just
No,
don't, I'm not feeling someone who's on drugs with her. I'm feeling a little a kid,
yeah.
So I that was my feelings on the actors and actresses. Now about the way the film was shot, it reminded me, and it didn't help that the quality was bad on YouTube, but it reminded me of a Grindhouse movie, the way it was shot. Um,
Interesting.
it when I was growing up in the 70s, when I was a little kid, we go to the drive-in, you know, they would have like a good movie, and then they would have like a second movie, which was always a B movie. And it kind of had that feel of a grindhouse B type movie.
Hmm.
So I wasn't too impressed with the quality of the movie. Of course, we're not impressed with the quality the of what it looks like on YouTube. I'm saying
Right.
aside from that, um, I was really having this grindhouse type feel from it, which is kind of nostalgic for me. But
It did feel kind of dirty in
yeah,
places, yeah.
yeah, dirty, yeah. So, um, but I think it would have been interesting if they would have done a part two of this storyline where uh, Pete Duel's character goes to jail for knocking up an underage girl, and then the psychiatrist has to visit him.
You know what I kept thinking of? I kept making myself laugh watching this. In Forgetting Sarah Marshall, when he's crashing out near the end and he's playing music, and he goes, "You need to see a psychiatrist. I hate the psychiatrist. Go see one anyway. I'm not going." I kept thinking of that.
Oh, if you've not seen
Oh,
Forgetting Sarah Marshall, it's a fantastic movie. Very funny.
and I do have this. This is an original ad for the movie that was in the some magazine. So I thought that was interesting that they included that.
Okay, very
Yep.
cool. I have to say that is, I've seen a few episodes of Bailey Smith and Jones. That was the first Peter Duel movie that I've seen, and yeah, he was one of the only bright spots in this movie. So, but hey, um, I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to get the message that drugs are bad and they're around. But I don't know, just
No,
it
I
wasn't
think
working for me.
yeah, I think it kind of worked as a character piece about Casey, but the rest of it around it wasn't working very well.
Yeah, yeah. And to have a group, the Staple Singers, and they are on the credits, the opening credits, the Staple Singers.
You're right, they are.
Um, so I thought, oh, okay, yeah. But to have them in just singing for a minute and a half in this church scene, it was like, couldn't you have
Oh,
just got
that
any?
was them in the
Yeah,
church scene. Oh, okay.
yeah. Couldn't you have just got anybody to do that? So,
And
but
paid them less, probably. Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, um, very good. Now next week, Violet has her capstone on Saturday. So we're going to be out of town for the weekend. So we're going to have to skip next week and go to the following week, but it's going to be worth it because we're doing a monster movie.
Oh boy, what are we doing?
We are doing Snow Beast, which stars the most famous actor to ever come out of Hartford, Illinois.
Who's that?
You have Google, look it up. Clint
Okay.
Walker.
Oh,
Clint,
from the that Western, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. He was from Hartford, Illinois, and in the early 70s, mid 70s, he came back to the Alton Parade. Um, and my uncle was the chief of police of Alton, and he kind of got to ride the float with him and kind of bodyguard him. It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
So anyway, Clint Walker. For those of you who don't know where Hartford, Illinois is, it's in the middle of a refinery, and it smells like it's in the middle of a refinery. When I was growing up, people's basements would blow up because natural gas would naturally seep in, and boom, they would blow up. Um,
Wow.
but I had some friends from Hartford, and fortunately, they all moved out. So
I'm glad your friends didn't blow up. Yeah.
yeah, I am too. I am too. So anyway, we will see you in 2 weeks when we do the Snow Beast. Well, watch the
Bye.
Snow Beast. That sounded bad. So bye bye.